Andrew Carter's first warehouse shift began with a handshake from Derek, a supervisor who looked like he'd fired a dozen men before noon. Then Linda Mercer stepped off the elevator. She was the new operations head, and the instant she saw Andrew, her face turned to granite.
You. In my office. Now.
She pulled him inside, shut the door, and stood with her back to him for a long second before speaking.
You fed me once. At the church kitchen. I remember your face like it was yesterday.
That was years ago. I didn't even recognize you.
If any of these people find out, I will fire you so fast. You won't even get a last paycheck. Now get out.
Andrew walked out with a cold knot in his stomach, a secret that already felt like a target someone had painted on his back. His first day wasn't over, but Andrew already knew. This job was going to be a fight for survival. Andrew walked onto the warehouse floor and tried to bury himself in the tasks Derek had assigned him.
Carter, I need you to reorganize these pallets. Now.
He moved quickly, but as he lifted the first box, she added a public criticism.
Did you even look at the labeling chart? This is basic stuff, Carter.
Was the meeting in her office real? Or am I just a bad fit for this job?
Derek watched with crossed arms, saying nothing, his face unreadable. Nearby, Maria met Andrew's eyes with a look that said she'd seen this kind of targeting before.
Why is she targeting me? I haven't done anything wrong.
As Linda walked away, the silence she left felt heavier than her words.
Just survive the day. That's all that matters.
He didn't know it yet, but Andrew had just become the person Linda Mercer needed to keep invisible. And the harder she pushed, the more dangerous the secret would become. Later that day, Linda called Andrew back to her office. The walls were glass, but the room felt like a trap.
Carter, this inventory log has 3 errors. 3. In one day.
She slid a form across the desk, a written warning, the first step toward termination.
I can fix it. I just need more time to learn the system.
You don't get more time. You get this warning. Next time, it's your last day.
She dismissed him with a flick of her hand, and Andrew walked out carrying the warning like a stone.
She's trying to push me out. Why? What did I do besides show her kindness years ago?
He considered quitting right then, walking out and never looking back. But he needed this paycheck.
I can't afford to quit, but can I survive this?
That night, he stayed late, sorting boxes in a silence that felt like defeat. The next morning, the warehouse buzzed with a new kind of pressure. Whispers that stopped the moment Andrew walked near. He caught the word liability and knew it was about him.
If these people knew the real connection, they'd say, I got this job through pity.
Hey, Andrew, don't let it get to you. Everyone has rough starts.
Her voice was kind, but the pity in her eyes made me feel smaller.
Later, alone in the break room, Andrew's eyes landed on a flyer pinned to the bulletin board. It was a faded church flyer for a soup kitchen, the same one where he'd volunteered every Sunday for years.
Back then, I served people who had nothing. Now I am the one being served a helping of shame every day.
The flyer mocked him with a memory of purpose, a time before this job had turned his own dignity into a liability. Andrew stood there, wondering if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life by walking through these doors. Maria found him still standing in front of the bulletin board, her voice softer than the fluorescent hum.
Linda used to be fair, Andrew. Lately, she's been wound tight. Maybe it's pressure from above, not you.
Pressure from above. That almost makes sense. Almost.
The words sat on his tongue, the church, the kitchen, the threat. But Linda's warning snapped his mouth shut.
If I tell her, I could lose this job before I even understand why.
He poured himself into the work, determined to prove the whispers wrong. But the next morning, Linda handed down a new assignment.
Carter, you are on the graveyard shift. Heavy inventory. Starting tonight.
He worked under the floodlights, the silence pressing in like a sentence.
Is she trying to make me quit? Or just break me for the sake of it?
Linda's pressure wasn't easing, it was tightening. Andrew couldn't tell if he was being punished or tested. Derek pulled Andrew into the side office, his face harder than Andrew had ever seen it.
Carter, I am not going to protect you. One more mistake and you are out.
Even Derek, who barely speaks, thinks I am a lost cause.
He threw himself into overtime, grinding through inventory until his hands blistered. But Linda still found him before the shift ended.
Carter, this pile is miscounted. Do you even care about accuracy? Or are you just wasting our time?
She's not testing me, she's tightening a noose, and I am running out of air.
That night, alone in the break room, Andrew stared at his reflection in the vending machine glass, the question consuming him.
Why did she even recognize me if she hates me? It makes no sense. This secret is a curse, and there's no way out.
Andrew felt himself slipping, and the scariest part was, he was starting not to care. After his shift, Andrew passed Linda's office and froze. Her voice cut through the silence.
Yes, I am overseeing the charity initiative for the homeless shelter. It's something I committed to years ago. Some people never forget where they came from. They carry it with them every day, like I do.
She's still involved with the homeless. That doesn't match the cold woman who's been tearing me down.
Andrew pressed closer to the door, the risk of being caught warring with a need to understand why she was so different on the phone.
Maybe this isn't about me at all. Maybe her cruelty comes from a place I can't see yet.
He pulled back, the sliver of light from her office like a warning that he was trespassing on dangerous ground.
But those words about never forgetting, they shifted something deep in my exhaustion.
He slipped away from the door, her voice still echoing in the empty corridor, planting a question he couldn't shake. For the first time in days, Andrew didn't feel like a victim. He felt on the edge of a truth, and he needed to find it. He returned to the break room, the echo of her voice pulling him back to the bulletin board. There, a church newsletter half covered the old flyer, open to a photo from the soup kitchen. In the photo, Andrew, younger, serving stew. Behind him, a woman so thin her bones seemed ready to break through fabric.
That face, it's Linda. Hollow-eyed, waiting for the ladle like it was the only comfort she had. I poured her an extra scoop every Sunday. I never knew her name, but I told her she was worth feeding. If anyone makes the connection, they'll say she hired a charity case. Her authority would be gone.
He finally understood. It wasn't hatred, but a terrified overcorrection to protect everything she'd rebuilt.
She's been trying to prove she's not the woman who once stood in that line, and I am the living reminder of the one day she'd rather forget.
Andrew stared at the photo, his anger folding into something quieter and more complicated. Andrew walked to Linda's office after the building went quiet, the newsletter still burning a hole in his memory.
We need to talk. Now.
Carter, it's late. Whatever it is can wait.
I saw the photo. The soup kitchen. You were there, at your lowest. That's why you've been cruel.
Linda's composed mask cracked. Her hand flew to her mouth, and for a moment she was the thin, hollow-eyed woman from the photo again.
If anyone finds out, my authority evaporates. They'll say I hired a charity case. Every decision I make will be second-guessed.
You are destroying me to protect yourself. I am the one being second-guessed. Every single day.
I know. I'll back off. I promise. But I can't publicly acknowledge you. Not yet.
Then nothing really changes. I'm still invisible.
He left the office with a promise that felt like paper, thin and easy to tear. The weight on his shoulders hadn't lifted. It had just shifted. Over the following days, Linda kept her distance, but her criticisms didn't stop. They just became harder to see. She noticed every tiny error, a comma, a box angle, and never let him forget.
Is Linda treating you any different? It's been a few days.
It's complicated. She's more careful, but that just makes it hurt differently.
Then go to HR, Andrew. This isn't fair. You don't have to suffer in silence.
If I go to HR, the secret comes out. Linda's career would be over, but staying quiet means this hollow feeling never ends. I am losing myself.
The choice twisted inside him. Expose her past and save himself, or protect her and let the lie swallow him whole.
Truth would destroy her authority, and maybe even her job.
Andrew said nothing to Maria, but his silence was a decision, one that ate at him from the inside. Derek assigned Andrew a rush shipment with a razor-thin deadline, a test he couldn't afford to fail.
Don't mess this up. Just focus. Every eye is on me.
Under the weight of the deadline, Andrew mislabeled a pallet of critical goods.
Carter, this pallet is labeled for the wrong city. Are you trying to cost us this contract?
Her voice cut across the warehouse floor, and every head turned.
You are incompetent, a liability to this entire operation. How many warnings do you need?
I can't breathe. Everyone is staring. She's burying me in front of them.
Maria looked away, and even Derek's face fell into something that looked like pity.
I've never felt so small, so exposed. This is a different kind of terror.
Andrew stood frozen, his face burning. The silence after her words worse than the shouting. Derek pulled Andrew into the side office, the door clicking shut like a cell block.
Carter, that was your final warning. One more misstep and security walks you out.
Andrew could only nod, the words washing over him like a sentence being read. He drifted to the break room, where Maria was already waiting with a cup of coffee.
Andrew, I don't know what to say. This has been so unfair to you.
I never should have taken this job. It was a mistake from the beginning.
He pulled a crumpled receipt from his pocket and smoothed it flat on the table.
I can't do this anymore. I am writing it out so I can walk away for good.
The pen scratched across the paper, forming the words, "I resign," each letter a small release. He folded the letter, then just sat there, staring at the bent edges of his decision. Andrew pushed himself up from the break room table and walked to Linda's office, the folded resignation letter heavy in his pocket. The office was empty. On her desk stood a framed photo of the soup kitchen, the same one from the newsletter, but with her own face circled.
She circled her own face. The woman she's trying so hard to bury.
Next to it, a handwritten note was propped against the frame. "Never forget who fed you when you had nothing." Andrew placed his resignation letter on her keyboard, the words "I resign" staring up like a final answer. He turned toward the door. At that moment, Linda walked in, her eyes immediately falling to the letter.
What is this?
Her voice was barely a whisper, but the room went cold. Andrew stood frozen, the door still open behind her, the letter a burning accusation between them. Linda picked up the letter, her lips forming the words, "I resign," before her hand shot out and grabbed Andrew's arm.
You can't leave. Please, just give me a minute to explain.
Andrew pulled his arm free, his voice hardening into something he'd never used with her before.
Explain what? That you've been humiliating me for weeks because you're terrified of your own past. I can't be your shield anymore.
Linda's composure shattered. She sank against the edge of the desk, as if the weight of the secret had finally snapped her spine.
When you served me that day, you looked at me like I was human. It was the first time in months I believed I wasn't invisible. That moment gave me the will to rebuild. But if anyone finds out, they'll say, I hired a charity case. My career, everything I've rebuilt, will be seen as a fraud. I was so scared of being exposed that I pushed you to the breaking point.
I won't be your sacrifice. If you still need this week, you better find a way to prove that I am more than your fear.
1 week. I promise I'll make it right. Just don't leave tonight.
Andrew nodded slowly, but the clock in his head had already started. 1 week, and then a decision no one could take back. The week passed in an uneasy truce. Linda stayed distant but professional, her criticisms replaced by a silence that felt almost worse.
At least she's not humiliating me anymore. But this quiet feels like waiting for a storm.
Rumors moved through the warehouse like dust, people whispering that Linda's position was in danger, that she might be replaced.
Andrew, everyone's saying Linda could be gone by the end of the quarter. You think it's true?
If she leaves without fixing this, what was the point of my suffering?
The day before the quarterly meeting, Andrew walked past Linda in the hallway. She didn't stop, she simply breathed a single word as she moved.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? What's tomorrow? She's been so quiet all week. Now this.
Andrew's heart hammered as he stepped into the conference hall the next morning. The room was filling fast. He took a seat near the back, pulse racing, a question he hadn't dared ask anyone burning behind his ribs. The CEO stepped to the podium, and the murmur of the room died instantly.
And now our operations head, Linda Mercer, has something personal she wants to share. Please welcome her.
Linda walked to the podium, her face pale but her eyes sharp with purpose.
She's going to do it. After all this silence, she's actually going to speak.
I want to share something personal tonight. Something about dignity and the man who gave it back to me.
That man. She's talking about me.
The words hung in the air as Linda's gaze swept across the room, briefly meeting Andrew's.
Don't look at me. Everyone will notice.
A charged silence filled the hall, every person leaning forward, as if the air itself had thickened. Andrew's heart slammed against his ribs. This was the moment that would either bury him or set him free, and he had no control over which. Linda's voice steadied as she continued, her past unfolding like a story she'd never told out loud.
6 years ago, I was homeless. I stood in a church kitchen line, invisible, until a volunteer served me with a smile. He didn't know my name, but he said, "You are worth feeding." He saw me when no one else did.
She paused, and the room was suspended in a silence heavier than any applause.
That volunteer is here tonight. His name is Andrew Carter.
A collective gasp rolled through the room as every head swiveled toward Andrew's seat.
I've been hard on him to avoid any whisper of favoritism. But today, I am done hiding. Andrew, please come up.
She's calling me. After everything, she's calling me out in front of everyone.
The weight of weeks of humiliation and silence pressed him into his seat, but he pushed himself up. Every step toward the stage felt like a confession and a release. Andrew reached the stage, and Linda took his hand in both of hers, her grip steady despite the tremor in her voice.
He didn't just feed me. He taught me that kindness is the truest form of leadership.
She turned to the CEO, then back to the room, her next words cutting through the silence with precision.
Andrew Carter is being promoted to team leader, effective immediately, not a favor, because the kindest people make the best leaders.
The room erupted. Applause thundered from every corner, and people sprang to their feet. Andrew stood frozen, the noise washing over him, until Linda's slight nod nudged him toward the microphone.
I just did what anyone would. I just saw someone who needed to be seen.
No, you didn't. That's the point. That's why you deserve this.
The applause surged again, louder now, and Andrew saw even Derek clapping hard, a rare smile breaking his weathered face. For the first time in weeks, Andrew breathed without a knot in his chest. Colleagues closed in around Andrew, a tide of hands clapping his back and voices offering congratulations.
Didn't know you had it in you, kid. Good work.
Even Derek, the man who warned me I'd be out.
Maria pushed through and threw her arms around him, her voice thick.
I always knew you were more than they said. I am so happy for you.
Thanks, Maria, for sticking by me when no one else would.
Across the room, Linda stood apart, watching the scene with a quiet, almost fragile smile. Andrew caught her eye through the crowd and mouthed two silent words. "Thank you," she nodded, the weight of weeks finally lifting from both of them. The CEO himself walked over, clapping a hand on Andrew's shoulder with a presidential smile. As the crowd around him thinned, Andrew slipped through a side door and found Linda waiting in the quiet hallway.
She extended her hand, but her eyes were wet. Thank you for not leaving, Andrew.
You could have told me sooner. Why did you wait so long?
I was afraid of who I'd become if I leaned on anyone again. You reminded me that dignity isn't a solo game.
Her voice cracked, and in that sound, Andrew heard the echo of the woman who'd once stood in line, hollow-eyed and hoping.
You don't have to fight alone anymore. Not now, and not ever.
They stood in the dim light, the sounds of the celebration muffled behind the door, a quiet understanding replacing the chaos. Andrew nodded, and Linda gave a small, watery smile, the first genuine one he'd seen from her. They walked separate ways, but the distance between them had finally collapsed. For the first time, Andrew believed he'd made the right choice by staying, and that the man he'd been weeks ago was still worth fighting for. Andrew unlocked his apartment door, the small, quiet place that had felt like a cell just days before. He crossed to his bookshelf and picked up a small framed photo he'd almost forgotten. It was the same church kitchen, faded, crinkled at the edges, and he'd framed it years ago without knowing why.
I guess I was worth feeding too.
The words left his mouth so quietly they were barely a whisper, but they settled something deep in his bones. He set the photo back on the shelf, right where he could see it from his bed. For weeks, he'd been surviving. Tonight, for the first time, he felt like he was building. The knot in his chest, the one that had lived there since that first handshake with Derek, was finally gone. Outside his window, the city hummed with the same noise, but inside, everything was quiet and still. He turned toward his rumpled uniform hanging on the door. The badge would be different tomorrow. And for the first time, he was ready. The next morning, Andrew stepped through the warehouse doors with a new badge pinned to his chest. Team leader. Derek was the first to see him. He walked over, looking at the badge, and for once, his face softened.
Well, look at you. That badge suits you better than I thought.
Maria rushed over and gave him a quick hug, then stepped back to admire the new title.
Andrew Carter, team leader. I like the sound of that.
As the crew got back to work, Andrew glanced toward the office window above the floor. Linda stood behind the glass, watching. Their eyes met. She gave a small nod, not a boss's command, but an equal's recognition. Andrew nodded back, then turned to his team. The weight of weeks finally replaced by a quiet, steady purpose. Life went on, but now, both of them knew a simple act of kindness could echo across years, changing everything.